The Wall Street Journal recently put out an article, "Buying a first home costs more than you think, especially now." Well, where have they been? Hi, I'm Jake Tysiak, that guy that sells houses. I'm a realtor here in Illinois, and today we're going to be going through this article recently put out by the Wall Street Journal. Now, I am a big fan of the Wall Street Journal and I read a lot of the material, and there are some good points in this article. I'm not here to contradict it. But there are some key aspects that they left out, and there are some tips that can go along with this. So if you do find yourself in this situation, you can learn from this article and utilize some of these tips going forward to make sure that you find yourself paying a reasonable price for a home in today's market. I'll also leave a link down below so you can read the full article itself. So the article starts off by talking about just how it is a little bit stressful for home buyers at purchasing their first home, and also talks a little bit about now how it's currently in today's market finding buyers putting even more down payment when it comes to purchasing their home, and also finding themselves with more closing costs than they might not anticipate. Now, while these are both true on the surface, understanding that you're going to be putting down more of a down payment really isn't a cost. It's just in lieu of using more of a mortgage, you're using more down payment and less mortgage, so it's really still the same price. And when it comes to closing costs, you really have to think of some of these as taxes, as most of them are related to the purchase price, and the higher purchase price you have, there's a chance that you're going to be paying more in closing costs as well. The article also goes on to talk about how first-time home buyers have a lower credit score, a median of 720 versus 753 for repeat buyers, according to the federal mortgage data compiled by the American Enterprise Institute. Now, it's definitely true that mortgages are based on your credit score. 720 though is sort of a big threshold when it really crosses into good credit levels, and being able to have many more options available to you and some pretty good interest rates to go along with it. Now, I'm not a mortgage broker, so I can't tell you exactly what the current rates are and the difference between the two, but I would venture to believe that it's probably not much, if anything, at max maybe an 8%. With rates still being relatively low, this isn't a big hit. But of course, every dollar does count. Now, the article then continues to talk about this couple trying to purchase a home in Tennessee. Let me read through it. Kathleen Jacob and her boyfriend Eric Hilt lost 3 different Nashville, Tennessee houses to higher bidders, despite offering more than $40,000 over ask on some of the homes. Last summer, the couple was thrilled when their $461,000 offer was chosen for a 112-year-old 1,100 square foot ranch. The seller had 2 conditions: waive the inspection and promise to go through with the deal even if the property was appraised below the purchase price. They did it anyway. Now, there are 2 big red flags, and let's dive into each of them separately. So currently, markets are definitely competitive, and one of the techniques sometimes buyers find themselves utilizing is writing different forms of home inspection contingencies into the contract. Now, these contingencies will vary from state to state, and there are places such as California that have already been using this waiver of inspections for a while now. Now, here in Illinois, things are still relatively calm. You can still find homes out there with sellers who are willing to have a home inspection done, and if there are any concerns or repairs that are necessary, either to address those and have them fixed, or rather give you a credit so that after closing you can bring in your own contractors and have some of that work done. Now, that has been shifting, and last summer we definitely saw a lot more homes written in as is condition. Now, the difference with this is you still have the right to come through and do a home inspection. You get to take a look through everything and then find out, based off that information, if this home is still compatible with what you want and the price that you're willing to pay. And this is a very feasible and logical opportunity to still take a look at some beautiful homes, get a good price, and then have an opportunity to think about it. Now, with waiving home inspections, pretty much you're going in blind. This is one of those topics I've talked about several times, and I never recommend it. Unless you have plans on a huge renovation and minor hiccups along the way that you might not have seen walking through the home are easily avoided because you're going to be taking care of them at all. Most of the time, I would only really recommend this for a seasoned investor who really knows what to look for. And for a first-time home buyer, I would never recommend this strategy. With the other two, at least you get to know what the house has and what kind of condition, major utilities and condition of the roof and so forth are. And if you do find yourself working with an agent who's constantly telling you that you need to waive your home inspection period, you might want to question if that's your best choice of action. Yes, waiving a home inspection will give you a better opportunity to get the home at a decent price, but the gamble that comes along with it just isn't worth it. And the difference between these different forms of home inspection or as-is condition or just waiving it is something you need to know about before you actually go out looking at homes. This is why it's so important to sit down with your realtor and have a buyer's consultation so they can lay out the guidelines going forward. And also, this way you're prepared when you do find a home so you're not stuck with an uncomfortable decision that you're forced through, because when pressure's on is when we make bad decisions. So now the second part of this couple decided to go ahead with the purchase regardless of the appraisal and willing to pay above it. Now when you're purchasing a home, an appraisal is a key part of the home buying process. Us agents can look out for you and give you a recommended purchase price, but the appraiser's there to make sure that you don't overpay for a house. This couple decided that they were willing to overpay for a house. When you come back with an appraisal, you have a couple options. Most of the time, there's some form of negotiation or the seller's just willing to take that price and go along with the transaction based on our terms. The second part that comes along with it is, do you have actually enough money to purchase that home? You see, when you do agree to purchase a home above appraisal price, that is going to have to come out of your pocket in the form of cash. So, for example, if you were buying a $300,000 home and you had to put down $40,000, but at the end of that, the appraisal came back at $290,000, that extra $10,000 has to come out of your pocket and be tacked onto your down payment. So instead of now having a $40,000 down payment, you need to have $50,000 because the bank's not going to finance that. The article continues to go on about how on their moving day, a hot 95-degree day, that the air conditioner gave out and they were forced to replace it. It cost them $7,000 to purchase and have a new air conditioner installed, and that cut their emergency fund by a third. And this is exactly why you don't want to find yourself waiving inspections when big costs like this can easily occur. Another point this article brings up is that this couple, Natalie Lvova and her husband Lev Linkovich, said that they had 15 minutes to walk through their home in Highland Ranch, Colorado, before they had to decide whether to make an offer. They didn't notice that many of the home's windows didn't open or close properly. They had an inspection, but the inspector missed the window problems. Ms. Lvova said the next shot came with the quote for repairing the windows, roughly $50,000. Wow, $50,000 is a lot of money, and actually this is going to fall on the home inspector. Now, it's not uncommon for buyers to be rushed through homes these days. We're finding ourselves with appointments overlapping and us forcing ourselves sometimes to lock the door to keep other agents out so you can look through the home and have some time to really examine the home. Now, while 15 minutes isn't a long time to look through a home, they still had a home inspection. And if that was a licensed home inspector, there's a good chance there's going to be some legal ramifications, because looking for windows and making sure that they open and close is very basic when it comes to a home inspector. And there's also a possibility that there could be some legal justification against this realtor if this was their only suggestion that they gave to them. So I would hope that they would be able to recoup this money. Unfortunately, this might be a little bit harder of a route than initially planned on. Now, this cost is excessive, and it goes on to talk about how this financial planner advises that you do save 1 to 3% of your home's value per year for ongoing maintenance and ways to improve the home if need be with roof, air conditioner, water heaters. These things do have lifespans on them that you do have to plan for. So that's a good tip to plan for 1 to 3% per year. And let's go over the last story that was mentioned in this article. About a year and a half ago, Max Strum, 34, and his wife Gabrielle Strum, 31, thought they had found their dream home, a 3-bedroom house with a finished basement in Montclair, New Jersey. About 3 weeks before closing, they learned they needed flood insurance. Neither the real estate agent nor the seller had disclosed the home was in a flood zone. Now, whether the agent knew or not, I can't really comment, because most of the time us agents get our information from the seller, and if the seller didn't notify the agent, there's really no way of us knowing. But the sellers are supposed to fill out a seller's disclosure and report things honestly. And something like a property being in a floodplain is pretty big. Now, there are chances that over time, depending on how long they've lived in the home, that these could have changed where it wasn't, but due to erosion or known flooding over the past couple of years, 10, 15, who knows, could have changed that and required flood insurance at that property. But it's sort of hard to envision not knowing about that, as most banks are require flood insurance because, again, they don't want damage done to the home. Now, luckily, these couple were able to terminate the contract and get their deposit back, and that's part of the reason why we have all these steps in place, is to make sure that you don't find yourself purchasing a home, which then you turn around and need to pay for flood insurance, which can be quite expensive. However, had they had purchased the home and the sellers knew about the floodplain, that would probably lead to a lawsuit. And if the agent knew about it as well and was disclosed before, and there was something that got changed and they didn't disclose that, that agent could have been liable as well. So yes, there's definitely more competition, and some of the tactics used today are different than they are prior. But it's important to have a game plan entering into the home shopping market, so you're not finding yourself getting so frustrated and doing something crazy that you find out costs you $15,000 down the road that you weren't planning for. So sit down, put together a game plan before you actually go out taking a look at homes. And if you are looking for an agent and have questions, feel free to give me a call. I'd be happy to help. But if you're curious about all the costs associated with purchasing a home, take a look at our video up here. And if you want to know the current market conditions, take a look at our playlist here. I'm Jake Tysiak with Keller Williams. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.